In the mid to late 20th century, Disney had a ride called Mission to Mars. It was a ride about the first hypothetical mission to Mars, and for what I see from some old footage I found on YouTube, it seemed to be a pretty fun ride. The ride unfortunately closed in 1992 due to a bunch of reasons, but that's not the end of Mission to Mars, as Disney later adapted the ride into the 2000s film with the same name directed by the legendary Brian De Palma, which bombed, wasn't received well by critics, and was part of a string of failures that led to De Palma to enter a career slump. I, however, kinda like it. I was drawn to it because of the soundtrack by Ennio Morricone, which is so good. And I'm also a big space nerd. I keep tabs on space things and space movies. Now, this is definitely not a perfect film. It's quite cheesy and it has a lot of stupid moments.
Hey! My baby.
But I have a soft spot for the many things that work for this movie. So, let's see the strengths, the flaws, and why I kinda like this movie. Mission to Mars was released in 2000, the same year as another Mars movie that starred Val Kilmer. Hollywood seemed to have a habit of releasing similar films in the same year. The film is set in the year 2020, which was 20 years in the future at the time. Humanity sends their first astronauts to Mars in the Mars 1 mission, commanded by Luke Graham, played by Don Cheadle. Mars 1 lands near the Cydonia region, and the crew there discovered a strange bright protrusion up in some mountains nearby, which they journey to in the hope that it's something that contains water that could be used for settling down on Mars. Catching a mysterious low sound on their communication systems, which they interpret as some kind of signal or pulse, they increase the power of the radar to get a better analysis of the thing under the mountain, only for a gigantic worm-like vortex to appear and cause some of the most unexpectedly brutal death scenes I've ever seen in a PG-rated movie. The event leaves Luke as the only survivor and causes a massive EMP that fries the computer of the spacecraft that could take Luke home, leaving him stranded on Mars. And a giant metallic head that has been covered by Martian soil for millennia is unveiled. After mission control get a distress signal from Luke and images from a satellite proves that there could be survivors, they quickly repurposed the Mars 2 mission into the Mars recovery mission and hastened up the launch schedule so they could rescue Luke and find out what the hell happened on Cydonia. The cast of the film includes Gary Sinise as Jim McConnell, the main character of the film. He's a somewhat reserved guy who still thinks of his wife Maggie, who passed away of an illness before the events of the film. He's like the thinking out of the box guy. He comes up with plans that people would think are crazy, but they work. Then we got Woody, the commander of the Mars recovery. He's a strong-headed and responsible guy, always willing to do dangerous things. Terry, Woody's wife, who's quite serious and compassionate, and also she does the stupidest thing in the movie. Don't worry, I'll discuss that later. And then we got Phil. He's kind of the comic relief guy, but he's also the technician of the crew. I think. These scenes make his role very questionable.
Alright, yeah!
And Luke Graham, the commander of the first Mars mission and the only survivor, now stranded on Mars and probably hoping they had some kind of suit of armor that can help them fly back home. The characters don't have a lot of depth into them, but I think they're pretty decent. There are moments where it's quiet and emotional, getting us to learn more about the characters, and they're mostly serviceable. But the lines can get somewhat cheesy and the script is definitely not giving De Palma any favors.
Okay, we're ready to light this candle.
That means that Luke's still gotta be alive. It means he's still down there.
It just means there's no one left to bury him.
Either way, the characters feel compelling enough where I get attached to them somewhat, but overall, the characters are not that special and feel pretty generic. The plot is pretty much divided into two halves, the journey to Mars and Mars itself, with the two parts very separated with a fade out that feels like it's cut into commercials.
We'll return after these messages.
The first part takes place in the Mars recovery spacecraft and focuses a lot on suspense as the crew encounters micrometeoroids that pelts the ship and punctured holes, forcing the crews to work around the clock to fix the ship. But they are then forced to go EVA because the engine exploded due to a piece of frozen fuel that polluted next to the thrusters. They moved to get to the REMO, the resupply module that has been orbiting Mars, so they could use it as a lander to get to the planet. Woody propels himself to connect the tether hook to the module, but because he went a bit too fast, he loses his grip and drifts away from the remote. And so Cherry does the stupidest thing you can do in this situation as she launches herself towards Woody to try and rescue him, wasting fuel for her thrusters and risking them both getting killed. Like, why? I know you want him back, but you're risking your life and wasting jet fuel. There is no guarantee that you two will return safely. You're a professional astronaut. You should have known this. Ultimately, Woody decides to do the ultimate sacrifice to convince Terry to get back to the others by becoming a human popsicle. In the second half, the crew finds the Mars One base, discovering that it's relatively intact, and a spacecraft that could send them home is in good enough shape if they do some repairs. Jim goes to the greenhouse where he meets up with a disheveled Luke who clearly has gone through a pretty tough experience.
Look.
After mourning Woody's death for a bit and catching each other up with what happened before, they figure out that the poses from the giant head form a 3D incomplete model of DNA, and they realize it's some sort of test to complete it. The crew, minus Phil who is left behind on the spacecraft to be on standby for launch, transmit the completed sequence to the giant head, through which a giant opening appears and they go inside, finding that it's a large mysterious room where they meet a hologram of an alien. Okay, hear me out. It is revealed that Mars used to be habitable before an asteroid slammed into it, forcing the Martians to evacuate, and that life on Earth originated from Mars when a Martian spacecraft crashed into the ocean and released DNA that evolved into life. Terry and Luke decides to leave and get back to the spacecraft before a dust storm makes it impossible to launch, while Jim decides to stay and join his ancestors in the stars, with him getting inserted into a Martian spacecraft. The crew manages to launch in time before the dust storm gets worse, and they witness the Martian spacecraft that's carrying Jim zoom out into space. The film's plot is engaging enough for me to care, and it seemed to aim for a hard sci-fi approach, but it does feel like 2001 Mars edition and features a lot of questionable things that harms its attempt to be hard sci-fi. A lot of the suspense does work, making me at the edge of my seat at times, but they're tainted by the fact that a lot of them are caused by stupid decisions. Aside from Terry's dumb act, when they were fixing the ship, Jim's original helmet got shattered by one of the micrometeoroids, but he decides not to get his spare helmet because he thinks that there's no time for that and he needs to help fixing the ship, unnecessarily risking his life as they had 5 minutes before the oxygen depletes. He could have gotten the helmet and do what he needed to do if he rushes a little, with this scene showing how dumb it is as he needed to say his name to access the systems, and he struggles because he can barely breathe.
Voice print identification. Not accepted.
And Phil here, who is trying to find the cable to cut off the systems and restart it, is rummaging through the cables without looking as if he's looking for something that fell under a table. And when they discover there's oxygen in the room inside the alien head, they decide to take off their helmets despite the possible chance of getting an alien virus. Okay, they were fine, but they should have known that they shouldn't open their helmets in an unknown environment just in case they catch something nasty. It genuinely makes me doubt that these astronauts are professionals, because my god, they are pretty stupid. The film of course includes those typical sci-fi tropes, like space being noisy and cold. I could at least forgive space being noisy, it's too ubiquitous at this point and I like the sound design. But the scene where Woody gets the Arnold from Magic School Bus treatment is just silly in a scene that's supposed to be sad and dramatic. It's almost a guarantee that the freezing in space trope will look silly, and it would be more effective if we just see Woody suffocate in space. I'm sure they can make it work within the PG rating, considering what we saw in the beginning. The obstacles like the micrometeoroids and the dust storm feel like the writers were giving excuses for dramatic moments. Like, it's convenient that the ship gets pelted by micrometeoroids as they approach Mars, and when they get to the planet, there's a dust storm approaching. And now the whole story behind the aliens. The movie paints the aliens as a long-lost benevolent race who lost their home because an asteroid slammed into their planet, with the Martian holograms shedding tears. But here's the thing. The Vortex that killed the astronauts in the beginning. It's justified as a security mechanism that would defend the face to keep out intruders who aren't their descendants, which they would determine if they pass the test by transmitting a signal towards the face with the completed sequence or not. Which is stupid. The astronauts didn't even know that there was a test or a face under there. They were just trying to analyze what they thought is a protrusion up that mountain with a radar signal. Yet the Vortex concludes that they're intruders and attack them. The aliens are supposed to be this all-knowing benevolent race, yet they couldn't just make a non-lethal system that scans the life forms in front of them to see if it's their descendants or not, without summoning a death-from tornado that kills innocent people who doesn't even understand why they are getting attacked. But still, hear me out. The plot point of Earth's life forms being descendant of Mars feels The filmmakers try to make it seem like a beautiful thing that mystifies Mars, but I see it as pretty uncreative. The life didn't come from Earth reveal is a pretty common trope, and it feels egregious with this film's case. It felt like they're overly garnishing the specialness of Mars, telling us that the red planet is special because it was our original home. I don't mind the Martian aliens, but making them our ancestors feels too much. I would question how the holograms know life evolved on Earth millions of years after, but I chalk it up to them monitoring Earth and making adjustments to their hologram show before anyone figure out their dumb tests. Like I said before, the film's plot is interesting enough to get me engaged, but the story is filled with dumb, questionable things, and as one critic says it, feels like 2001 for dummies. The film's story is filled with the typical tropes of writing a sci-fi, where the writers clearly want to create a suspenseful and thought-provoking hard sci-fi with human drama, but they overlook the fact that some aspects of their story are dumb for the setting that it's in. What are supposed to be professionals do stupid things, and what are supposed to be a benevolent alien race have a death tornado that kills innocent people. It tries to mix human drama and sci-fi, but it screws up a bunch in the sci-fi part. We got these great actors, and they have to deal with this script that makes their characters look dumb. The good parts of the story are the character interactions. You at least get a feel for what kind of characters they are when they interact. I mean, come on, these actors are great, they managed to make it serviceable. Even if the dialogue can get really cheesy, and I feel like Woody's death is gone over too quickly. So it's not a terrible plot, but it isn't good. It's filled with stupid stuff, but there's some redeeming stuff in it too. But now let's focus on the best parts of the movie, and why I have a soft spot for it. The special effects. Despite the film releasing in 2000, they still look amazing. The special effects are a blend between both CGI and practical effects, and boy, they look great. The Mars Recovery spacecraft is a giant miniature. They built a rotating set for the ship's centrifuge, and they filmed the Mars scenes outside on a massive sand pit in Vancouver that was converted into looking more like Mars, possibly one of the largest sets ever created for a film. The CGI, while it can be somewhat outdated in some parts, hold up in a lot of the scenes and look pretty incredible. Like the scene with the giant death tornado and the hologram scene that shows the origins of life on Earth. De Palma knows how to film his stuff. A lot of the shots linger on the special and practical effects so we could take a good look at them. My favorite being the long take in the centrifuge where Terry moves along the set as we see the other characters in their cubicles. Most of the fantastic visuals are accompanied by Ennio Morricone's great score. Just listen and take a look. The production design is also very lovely. I like the designs of the sci-fi tech like the spacecraft and the spacesuits. The design of the Mars Recovery is probably one of my favorite spaceship designs. It's a mix of a space shuttle and the Discovery 1 from 2001, and it has features that would logically make sense for a futuristic spaceship. Though it does feel like they violated some regulations by having the ship too vulnerable to micrometeoroids. The aesthetic of the technology in the film are like 2001 or Interstellar, where the technology is futuristic but also based on current technology or space concepts, making it feel like a natural evolution of technology. I like it very much. The behind the scenes show how much the crew worked on the production design and the special effects. Scenes like the long take in the centrifuge and the zero gravity look like they were a pain to film. And the amount of work to create a Martian landscape in a Vancouver sandpit is incredible. It's a real shame that the script was this mediocre. They did so much work and spent $100 million, which was a ginormous budget for 2000. And so that was Mission to Mars. The characters are compelling enough, the visual and special effects are incredible, but it's held back by a script that contains sci-fi cliches, requires some dumb moments to get the story to move forward, and wasting the incredible talent on and off screen. Considering that De Palma was brought in as director after Gore Verbinski walked out of the film, I do believe that De Palma and the production team could have made a fantastic sci-fi film if they were given more time to develop and iron it out. It's a shame that this film is part of the string of failures that contributed to De Palma entering a career slump, considering his great filmography featuring amazing films. Overall, the story is not good, but the visuals, the production design, and music mix it up and why I kinda like this movie. It's one of those cheesy movies where you watch it for fun, preferably with friends. So, yeah, that's it.